What's up, Notre Dame fans? I am Ashton Pollard here with Tyler Horka, and we just wrapped up spring practice number 1. Because it was the first practice, there was not a ton to learn, but we did get to watch practice for about 30 minutes earlier, and there were some initial takeaways. Tyler, what did you see?
Yeah, obviously we saw a lot of stretching, and if you watch these videos in August of last year, then you know that we see about 15 minutes of stretching. But then really it was kind of learning the basics of a Marcus Freeman-led practice. He's kind of going through all of this for the first time. I know he got those Fiesta Bowl practices, and those were valuable because he could take things that he liked from those, and then he could take some things that he didn't like and just not do them. But all the drills were kind of new to us. The media members were all standing around the field like, okay, we're not really sure where these guys are going. So it was new for us, and it was new for him trying to follow where some of these guys were at. But really the biggest takeaways were just seeing, all 4 scholarship quarterbacks together, seeing the running backs together, and Maris Leofau was out there, and he looks very physically imposing and intimidating. So just kind of seeing these guys up close and in person again was nice, and I'm sure throughout the spring we'll learn more X's and O's. We'll learn where guys are lining up, because today there wasn't much of that. Like, I went outside and looked at the offensive line, and they didn't line up 5 across at any point in time. I don't think the quarterbacks threw to wide receivers once today. They did some handoffs with running backs, but really it was very much a let's kind of ease into this thing feel for at least what we saw from the media portion.
So on the topic of the quarterbacks, like you said, they weren't really throwing to the wide receivers, but we did kind of get a look at who was leading drills. It seemed to be Tyler Buchner for the majority of it, but that being said, Pyne was definitely up there and was not a non-factor. What did you take away from that?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the 2 guys that everyone's going to be talking about this spring. We're going to be talking about them in the summer, and then I think we're still going to be talking about them in the fall. I don't think this is a quarterback competition that's going to be decided until maybe a week or 2 before that first game against Ohio State, because Jack Cohn came in here from Wisconsin last year, and we didn't learn that he was officially the starter until I think it was August 14th. So Tyler Buchner, Drew Pyne were definitely 1-2. You can't really say who was 1 and who was 2, although Buchner probably led most of the drills, and these drills were just drop backs, catching snaps, throwing to assistant coaches who were kind of lined up in the field, sometimes not even throwing the ball. It was literally just dropping back, getting mechanics down, and then faking a throwing motion. So those were the top 2 guys, but I was really impressed by Steve Angeli. I know Mike Singer is really going to love that, but I would say of the 4 quarterbacks, Tyler Buchner, Drew Pyne, Steve Angeli, and Ron Powlus, I think Steve Angeli looks the most physically ready to play right now. He's almost 6'3", 210, 215 pounds, and he looks like a solid 210, 215 pounds. So good-looking quarterback. Some of those throws that he was throwing to those assistant coaches were on the money, and again, no defenders throwing on air, but I think he prides himself on accuracy, and he looked pretty good. So that if he's your third-string quarterback this season, which he will be, that's a pretty good third stringer to have.
Yeah, and I know Marcus Freeman was very high on them too. He was asked about it in his press conference a few minutes ago that we'll have a lot on blueandgold.com about. But yeah, he was asked about them. It was very complimentary of everybody. Said it's a very unique group. Obviously, Pyne and Buchner are the only ones with playing experience, but he was sure to compliment both Powlus and Angeli on their, I think he called them exceptional thinkers. So certainly in there, he's certainly impressed. And he also mentioned that he's been having essentially one-on-one meetings, I guess it's 1-on-4, but him alone with the quarterbacks, trying to get to know them, because he obviously is not a quarterback guru. He admitted that verbatim in the press conference, so he would not mind me saying that. But yeah, he was very impressed. On the defensive side of the ball, you brought up that Maris was out there kind of leading the drills. He's expected to have a big season, and Marcus Freeman was asked about him as well. Tyler, what did you take away from both Freeman's comments and what you saw there from Maris?
Yeah, Leofau looks ready to go, and I think it's a good sign for Notre Dame fans that when Marcus Freeman was talking about Maris Leofau, it's that he needs to play a little more under control. He needs to channel some of that aggression and some of that energy that he's going to play with this season. If he stays healthy, I think you're going to see a linebacker that was really all over the field. And I know some of those linebackers last year played pretty well. J.D. Bertrand, over 100 tackles. Drew White, really solid in the middle. But I think Maris Leofau brings something different athletically that some of those other linebackers that have played for Notre Dame recently do not. So if he learns to channel some of that athleticism and plays a little bit more under control, that's what Marcus Freeman was harping on today, then I think Notre Dame's going to have a great linebacker in Maris Leofow, and you wrote about that earlier this week as well. So kind of all eyes are on him, and rightfully so. He looks the part. Now it's just about playing the part.
Yeah, so on the topic of linebackers, there are 4 early enrollees. All 4 that are in the 2022 class are here. They did enroll early. Marcus Freeman was also asked about them. That group is, of course, headlined by Jalen Sneed, the top defensive recruit in the class and the top overall recruit in the class, I guess. So, yeah, Tyler, did any specific freshmen stick out to you today?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking for them out there, and look, Marcus Freeman said, I don't know some of these guys' numbers right now, so if he doesn't know them, I don't know them. But yeah, I definitely noticed, Sneed probably needs to bulk up a little bit, but that's another comment that Marcus Freeman made was, look, some of these freshmen that have come in and enrolled early, he wants those guys to look at guys like Leofow and say, that's what you're going to look like 3 years from now, 4 years from now. So I wouldn't get too carried away in what the freshmen look like on day 1 of spring practice. I'm not going to get too carried away about what they look like in the blue-gold game either, although it will be interesting to see them play a little bit of 11-on-11. But I thought Jaden Mickey looked really good. That's another guy that we've all talked about. I think other media outlets have talked about him. Just given the situation that Notre Dame has at cornerback, kind of need a guy to step up there. I think Mickey will be that guy. Will he be that guy this year? I don't know. It's hard to say. Again, we don't know what these guys will look like this fall, let alone a few years from now. So at some point, I think he's going to be a guy. But, yeah, Marcus Freeman mentioned that Mickey and Jaden Bellamy, the 2 secondary players that enrolled early, looked really good in winter workouts. So now that he mentioned that, I'm really curious to see what they look like the rest of the spring and the viewing opportunities that we'll have.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of moving more big picture, there were a lot of questions for Freeman earlier about his goals. And obviously, as Tyler mentioned, this is his first time kind of taking his own team through practice. The Fiesta Bowl was Brian Kelly's old team. So he was kind of asked about his goals. He was very specific, which we were just saying we really liked that he gave a lot of information, was very specific. Tyler, what about what he said about his goals stuck out to you?
Yeah, for me, it was kind of like the first day of school in the sense that he's throwing all this information out there. And I'm like, wow, I haven't come away from a Notre Dame football press conference thinking that I learned so much. And I know it is the first day of spring practice, so you're bound to learn some things. But what stuck out to me when he was talking about his goals is that he's looking for leadership in these spring sessions. So in a really good comment that he made was Avery Davis, Jarrett Patterson, both out with injuries during the spring, and those are the 2 returning team captains. So what he's looking for is who's going to step up. And I think another interesting comment was he's looking for guys to lead by example, not necessarily the rah-rah, need to be vocal type of guys, but he wants to see somebody who maybe faces a little adversity in a spring practice where runs a drill wrong, gets burnt, something doesn't go a player's way. How does that player respond? And then how does he say, hey, this just happened to me, it's probably going to happen to you guys too, but here's how you need to respond to it and here's how you need to learn from it. So leadership is going to be very big, and knowing Marcus Freeman, I'm not surprised by that. He's very much a leader in his own right. So the fact that he's looking for leaders within his football team, I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, no, he made a big point to say basically that the last rep, you have to forget about it. If something went wrong, doesn't matter anymore. He doesn't remember it, so you shouldn't remember it, which I thought was a very good demonstration of leadership from him. So yeah, that's kind of all we have. Like we said, not a ton to gain from spring practice today just because it is so early, but it was nice to get out there, see the team, see kind of what everybody looks like after a couple months of the off season, and we'll be back at practice in the next couple of weeks giving you guys updates. But for now, you should definitely go check out blueandgold.com. We already have a couple of pieces up, instant observations from practice. We'll have some quick hitters from Marcus Freeman's press conference up, and then we'll also be churning out additional content throughout the day, kind of breaking down what Marcus Freeman said and breaking down more what we saw, with additional videos, film, and stuff like that. So definitely should go check it out, and we'll be back next time.